A and S. I imagine standing outside the Museum of Contemporary Art in Denver, waiting anxiously to see Yumi Gennaro Roth and Emmanuel David's art installation titled We Are Coming. It's September 29th, and the crackle of neon of an old movie theater marquee sparks to life. Yumi and Emmanuel look on at the names of 3 original Filipino Rough Riders from the Buffalo Bills' 1890s Wild West, once invisibilized, and now a bright topography of lights. As the crowd whispers the names Isadora, Geronimo, Felix, I imagine the research twists and turns, the breadcrumbs like boulders to Emmanuel and Yumi, critical to uncovering the stories of the erased. I imagine the voices of these brave performers leading them on and into the exhibit that rebodies the past.
Right. How is that? Okay. Wait, I'm asking, now that light is blinding me, is there any way to... Yeah, there you go, thanks. I was like, oh my God.
I can't imagine a time Yumi and Emmanuel weren't besties who didn't text all day, every day. These two sit in conversation with such delight and urgency that it is impossible to imagine them not connected. What you don't know, dear listeners, is that they asked to rearrange our recording studio so they could look at one another and pass silent dialogues as fluently as those shared aloud. Their energy for making and uncovering is infectious, as is the way they and together as humans. I can't imagine a moment when they are not in constant conversation, and thank goodness we don't have to. On the ampersand, we call this bringing together of the impossible the alchemy of anding. Together, we'll hear stories of humans who imagine and create by colliding their interests. Rather than thinking of and as a simple conjunction in that conjunction-junction kind of way, we will hear stories of people who see and as a verb, a way to speak the beautiful when you intentionally let the soft animal of your body love what it loves. As St. Mary Oliver asks, what is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life? Oh, I love this question. When I'm mothering, creating, and collaborating, it reminds me to replace a singular idea of what I think I should become with a full sensory verb about experiencing. I'm Erika Randall. And this is Emmanuel David and Yumi Gennaro Roth on the ampersand.
As a form of background, people don't know this, but the Philippines has a long ranching history, long cowboy culture or cowboy culture. And, I come from that. It's hard to believe this actually has a connection to that, but it does.
It's hard for you to believe, or me seeing you in this hoodie?
Me, not so much.
You in this Nike hoodie?
Me, not so much. As I always joke, and I've told Emmanuel, I told a lot of people, when I graduated from a college, my grandfather came to my college graduation, and he came and he gave me a cow. I got a cow for graduation because a cow begets cattle, and cattle is wealth.
Yes.
My cow was stolen within the next year, but that is beside the point. That was I was cattle rustled off an island.
You were off an island.
Yeah, because cattle ranching happens on islands, right, in the Philippines. So the point is that we've been talking about rodeos that happen in the Philippines, and we're planning on going to one. We were going to go to it last year, but just in the Philippines. In the Philippines, we're going to go next year. Well, just because there's this whole erasure of kind of what this culture looks like outside of the American West. Like it's the story of the American West is way more complex than the sort of the general narrative that's often shared. And so yesterday, Emmanuel sent me a photo of a family friend, or was it? Yes, wearing a stack of cowboy hats. Must have been 10.
Yeah.
Do you remember this photo being taken?
It was shared with me because we were talking about this rodeo.
Yeah.
And redistributing those hats to the folks at the rodeo. And I share photos, like old photos, like, see, here's the ranch. Here's my uncle as a cowboy in the 70s.
It's real, and you're
right.
And here's a photo of me at the stock show in Denver.
Yes.
So growing up in Colorado, there were elements of being in the Filipino community here, but also being around the Wild West.
Because you grew up here.
Born and raised in Denver. And so, the stock show was always present.
You went to Buffalo Bill for a school field trip?
I may have. I know Lookout Mountain. And also, Heritage Square up in Golden. So there was like this Victorian storybook, Old West amusement park. And so, there were always elements of the West, but those two things never converged. And so
this is that point of convergence.
This is a point of convergence. Yeah.
And so if we're to hold the project that is right now holding all of your attention, can you name it for me?
We Are Coming.
We Are Coming. And I have seen images from We Are Coming, and I have listened to you all sharing. I have been digging in the archives on my own. I've been researching the Filipino Rough Riders at the start of we don't want to say show, Buffalo Bills.
Wild West.
Wild West. You have got me so lit. I feel these indelible imprints in just the 3 days I have spent with this rehistoring, because it was always there, you say, but then it got erased. Talk to me about how you start a project based on things that aren't there, and then how you bring them into being so that they matter this much to you and to your audiences.
It's my turn. It's interesting because how long have we been doing this project now? Like head on, full on, 3 years? Like
3 years.
And just going top speed. I don't think we don't have a back burner speed.
The cadence is always...
We're always on.
Yeah, we're always on. And so it's in some ways, it's hard for me to think back to that beginning moment. I mean, I can remember that moment, but in terms of just the barely there to all the things we know now and all the stories that we're trying to both theorize as well as reconstruct and understand, like it's a huge chasm between where we were and where we are now.
Thanks to you all.
And thanks to them, because they left traces for us to find. So, it started with their names. And
in the logbook or in the
route book? Well, that was one, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and what began with names turned into human beings that had dimension. We know their faces. We know the shape of their bodies. We know how they related to one another. At least we have a sense of them being in a space together. And I think it became important for us to think of them as a collective, as a troupe, as a we. That was not singular. So there's, the American individualism of the Buffalo Bill Cody, who stands alone. And we were interested in what are the commons, Jose Munoz's Brown Commons, and like what are the relationalities that they would have with each other. And I feel, you mentioned, Erika, that you have this deep imprint. We have this, I don't know, I feel this incredible bond with this group of 8 Filipino performers that, they were brave, they were adventurous.
Oh, they stood up in front of audiences who were harassing them.
Oh, yeah.
Thousands of white bodies hissing at them.
Absolutely. At their opening show in 1899, Madison Square Garden, a crowd of tens of thousands of people.
2 shows a day.
2 shows a day for 2.5 weeks.
While there's violence overseas.
While there's not just any violence, a war with the Philippines.
With the Philippines.
Yes.
Yeah, and so those audiences applauded every single troupe, but when the Filipinos walked into that arena, it was a chorus of hisses. And so, to stand there and stand tall,
and do it repeatedly.
They were brave.
Yeah.
And so a lot of this project is about kind of honoring their place in the world.
Yes. I think that's absolutely correct. I think Emmanuel has articulated that really well. I mean, one thing I always joke with him about this, can I say it?
Go.
You sure? Okay. Is that it's part of it is like we've been with this collective for so long. We feel a real generosity that that their stories have been shared with us as much as we can find them. And I often will half jokingly say that in some ways they're leading us, like that there's a component that we found so many needles in so many haystacks that the coincidence seems it doesn't seem believable as coincidence.
Yeah, I have chills just, I'm feeling with that. Yeah.
We often feel like, I can't believe we just found this, or we learned this, or we know this, or we saw this. Because when you do it once, okay. Yeah. When you do it twice, okay. When you've done it as many times as we've done it, with, following a barely there breadcrumb trail, it seems otherworldly.
And it feels that when I look at the way you two look at one another, when you say that we're trying to bring the we into it. And so it did take a we also to come together so that there could be new kind of family generated.
I think it had to be that way. I don't think, we each had, the ways we came into this project started off somewhat separate paths, but of course then we refound each other and we're like, hey, did you blah, blah, blah? And, and Emmanuel was like, hey, yes, I did this sort of thing. And we're like, hey, let's work together. Let's do at least, or let's dig in a little bit together. And since that point, we have not been able to unstick ourselves on this project.
I love how that stickiness, though, what it does for supporting maybe the audacity of a question, or why am I following this breadcrumb? I remember the first time when I was doing research as an undergrad, and I looked at the names under a photo, and I was meant to look at Martha Graham. That's who it was pointing to. But I saw Lillian Gish and Louise Brooks, and I was like, silent screen actresses, what are they all doing in there? And it started this whole trajectory of research for me. And how do you all inspire and create that kind of showing of trust about the small, almost invisible breadcrumbs, especially when you're looking at worlds that can be erased from a Western perspective? How do you inspire that in others? How is this project doing that? I'd love to just hear about that, because it can feel like you can brush breadcrumbs away, and you can go deeply after them.
I mean, I think there are two ways to think about that. One is, we started where we are, and so rather than trying to come up with a question or come up with a project or something, we thought about Colorado. We're both here. We're thinking about Filipino-ness in the West. And it kind of led us, there was a curiosity. And so it couldn't have started with, we are going to study this or that. It was a curiosity about the world based on where we are and who we are.
Yes.
And so thinking about the documents, it's through a lens of our own history, our own experience, and leaving it open. Yeah.
Which is terrifying and really thrilling.
Terrifying.
It is. But it's always, but what's remarkable is anytime we think we might have, maybe we've exhausted this path, or maybe it just doesn't get.
We should stop talking about this. No.
Well, not even just that, just like, like the different pathways that one could take. This is a dead end. And then it's all of a sudden not a dead end.
I love this because I think also so often we want to jump to what's kind of the sexy thesis or headline. But what you are not jumping to, but you also are pointing to, is on these marquees, and we are coming. You are putting up pretty flashy, not footnotes, but headliners on these marquees. I'd love to hear about that. How did it feel right to go to this visual art piece of it now, and this headline marquee leading role, without knowing maybe how you want to tell the whole story, but how this part of the story needed a marquee?
I think it, when we have, if anybody does any digging in Buffalo Bill, you'll see that Wild West show was just replete with ephemera, like beautiful posters done by the best graphic artists out of the best lithography studios of the time. I mean, just astonishing work, beautiful work, right? And the imagery is, everything really, I'm sure there will be Buffalo Bill scholars who will, say something else. And I don't allege to be a Buffalo Bill scholar, but just surveying all of that stuff, the spectacle was with a lot of different characters in the show, but people came for Buffalo Bill's name, right? They came for that character, and then they came for that character in concert with other, sort of other troops in the performance. They came for, just his emceeing, the whole thing that was Buffalo Bill, the mythology that was Buffalo Bill.
And was the Wild West.
So the posters and the ephemera all sort of circulate around that the centrality of Buffalo Bill as a character. And so we were just interested in that inversion. And, you know, when you think also about Buffalo Bill's Wild West is in some ways is kind of as a predecessor to, you know, kind of later cinema of the American West. Like a lot of those narratives in the Wild West show they point back to sort of those early films and then later films, and whether they're like acceptance or rejection or whatever, it's the same kind of circular narratives. Yes. So, you know, that then took us to theaters and, you know, thinking about, okay, what if
I love that. That helps us jump to the marquee.
The marquee. And then also the idea, I mean, We Are Coming ends up having a really actually much more rich, I think, you know, and Emmanuel can do a really great job sort of talking about the richness of We Are Coming, but it starts from an early poster of Buffalo Bill where he's so famous at this point when he's touring that he can have a poster that, you know, appears in a city and it just says, you know, has a medallion portrait of Buffalo Bill, a herd of stampeding bison in the background, and all it says is I am coming. It's messianic.
Is this what Coach Prime is doing right now?
We coming?
We coming.
We coming.
Do you think that
I don't know. I don't know. I've wondered. I have no idea, but I think it's just a curious. I think it's just an interesting overlap.
Yeah.
But anyhow,
But this was postering that would have seen.
So anytime before Buffalo Bill's Wild West would enter into, you know, wherever it would do its shows, there would be an advanced team of people who would plaster the towns with all the advertising to sell tickets.
But you wouldn't even have to say what it was.
You wouldn't have to say, right? And you could have a poster that just had Buffalo Bill's portrait, a stampeding herd of bison, and the words "I am coming." You know.
And people would come from near and far to go to those shows. So, you know, the parades outside of the show would draw 20, 30,000 people.
That many people.
Yeah. And so
into small towns.
Oh, yeah. From surrounding communities.
They'd take the train in. They'd report in the newspaper that they were going. Afterwards, they'd report that they went. So these were huge public events that were for entertainment, but they also served another purpose, which was to educate the masses about world politics. And so there were people for the first time saw Filipinos
as quote unquote Filipinos.
Right. And so the I Am Coming, we've inverted it to think about the we, to focus on their names as not on the edges or the periphery, but to put them front and center, their names and lights, to have the neon glow, the
materiality of that marquee. And then also there's the piece of, you know, working with the theaters who they become interpreters of that history just by the fact of installing those names, because that is happening on the sidewalk. People ask, what's happening, you know? Who's coming, whatever. And so
it starts a dialogue. Yes. So there isn't that you walk into the theater and then you see.
There's nothing happening. No, nothing happening. Yes, the marquee, the performative aspect of it, all that is the work.
Is the putting up of the sign and the sign.
And the deinstallation. That happens also.
And the questions that come up. And that's what's so thrilling, right? Yeah. Is that the questions come up. And not only that is so thrilling, it's so many layers, and that you are trying to deliver on a past that...
Yeah, and to have, Yumi was talking about the working with the staff members at the theaters, they need to slow down. Like, we watched them look at the piece of paper to make sure they got the spelling right, you know, and so it's not just putting up Joe, you know,
Isadora with a Y.
They needed to study, and like, what does it mean to have, I want to say, an unfamiliar name, but it draws attention to the process.
And that drawing of attention to process is what you two are all about. In your own work, in your human lives, in this relationship, and in this research. When I think about drawing attention to process, in my own experience, I it makes me also process my life story comes back. So you all have life story in this. Can you talk to me about your relationships to the Philippines, where they are really similar, that you both know, yes, that food, and yes, that holiday, or yes, that particular way of anting, and then ways that it feels really different, and you're constantly complexifying for one another your family stories?
I mean, we check back and forth with each other, because even though we both have grown up as second generation Filipino Americans, and we can share, we can look at each other and wink and know certain things, we also have vastly different experiences from our upbringing. So they're not, so oftentimes we'll talk and say, oh, well, blah, 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 do you remember that? And Emmanuel might have a totally different experience with this very same thing. And that's also, that diversity.
That's healthy for the research and the lens as well.
Right. And likely sort of reminds us that even if this troupe was together, they also came from extraordinarily, likely different walks of life, and how they found themselves in this, in this performance spectacle for the time that they found themselves. They didn't come all from the same place, and they likely didn't have the same backgrounds.
When coincidence and surprise is part of the magic glue of you two, and you said it can't maybe be coincidence now. It's like almost intervention. What do you have a ritual? When do you celebrate? Because you're having so many of these moments. Like, do you stop and say, no, we have to celebrate, this is amazing? And what does that look like? And or does that just mean, let's do more work?
I don't know if there's an endpoint yet, like where we've paused and celebrated, because when it goes up, we do, like, for example, when the light, we've done 2 iterations of We Are Coming on the street. So one in Boulder and one in Cody. It's those moments when the lights go on and there's a sense of awe.
And not the metaphoric lights, not the
literal
light. Like you actually, you see a sign, not just you saw a spiritual sign. Right. You see a sign. Yeah. The lights go on.
There's a buzz. There's like the buzz of the neon. It's electrifying. Yeah. And so there were moments of pause in terms of saying, wow, something just happened. Yeah. And, so I don't know if it's a celebration, but it's that feeling of being in a moment together.
Exactly. And I think what we also always remember is that neither of us are doing this alone. We're always doing it with that troupe of Filipinos, right? So we have to have modesty in the face of that. And I think we always do. So when when the lights go on, it's not,
they don't go on to you.
No, it's this sort of bringing back into the present, groups of people who have been overlooked or forgotten, and making them remembered. There's a there's a tradition in the Philippines, like in many countries, where you go to the cemetery every year, and you bring food, you commune.
Stay there overnight.
Yes, yeah, you hang out with the dead relatives, the living relatives. You connect with relatives you didn't know you had, but they live in the same community. It's alive.
It's alive.
You talk to them.
Yes, even in a moment of death, it's alive.
Yes. So, I'm not saying that this is a totally analogous situation, but it is in that regard that it's not just about Emmanuel and me when those lights go on or when we do this project.
And it's not just about the past, because we're also thinking about the we that was them, the we that is us, and the we that could be in the future. So there's the possibility of a future community that is yet to be realized. It's something that is unfolding and that we don't know what it is yet.
That's the thing that in knowing your work first, before getting to know yours, and I talked to you both in my pre-show questions about this idea of pointing towards. I really see it in your work, both kind of literally and spiritually, because you do visual artwork with signs and maps on hands and arrows to places, but then they point you to places that you don't kind of expect, but pointing to. And your work, do you feel this sense of kind of pointing towards? Is that just kind of in the audience receipt of it? Or are you trying, like you say, pointing towards a better future, a better ancestry? Or what are these arrows? Is this a true analysis? Does this feel real for you, what I'm seeing? Or can you say it in a better way? with regard to the signs and the pointing as you point to Emmanuel?
I mean, I think it's about a we-ness as existing in a world that was maybe not meant for us. Mm-hmm. And, when we were talking about kind of the hostilities that they experienced, they found ways to manage and cope and thrive in those spaces. And I think this is about the Filipino Rough Riders, but it's also about a world of racial inequality. And what does it mean to deal with white-dominated institutions and not just the Wild West shows, but museums and universities and all these other spaces that we move through. Archives, absolutely. Right. And so it's driven by thinking about ways that this could be otherwise and could be something else. Right. And so that there's a lot of possibility in the we are. And so it's also about the anticipatory logics that it is not now, but it's about to be. And there's always this anticipation of what could be or what is coming. And I think that it, in many ways, captures.
And who constitutes the we? We often talk about that, too, because anytime you go across a marquee, I know I do it, is you kind of read it out loud, and you read it out as you read it to yourself, right? Or you read it out loud. And so what happens when you read "We Are Coming" becomes who's the we, and then that which we. So the linguistic elements, Tess, are really, as much as there's the sort of the tactile and the formal, we are also very much invested in the language component of it.
So we're trying to rewrite that history because there are go-to narratives, and this one bucks that. It does something else. And
I like that you say bucks that. Because you don't use metaphor very often.
Not very often.
I know. So I'm going to call you on that one because I could already tell as we were chatting in the lobby. I'm like, Emmanuel is not going to be with the metaphor in this. When you say the lights came on, you mean you flipped a switch.
We flipped a switch.
I love it. Okay. So we're going to do something a little different on the Quick and Dirty today. We're going to play, like the old 70s newlywed game, but we're going to try to you have been asked questions and you have written your answers down in secrecy. And we're going to see how this goes to see how really stuck together are the brains of Emmanuel and Yumi and Emmanuel.
They're stuck.
They're stuck. And if I can read your handwriting, this is okay. All right. So, we asked earlier, the 2 moments that you knew We Are Coming was on the right track. And what did you think do you even remember this question?
I don't even remember this question.
Okay. Emmanuel says,
do we have a button just so we get it wrong? Okay.
Wrong.
Okay. So Emmanuel says that Yumi would say when the neon lights went on and when we saw the posters in Cody.
Yeah, I guess I didn't. Okay. We had a lot of moments, but yes.
Yes?
I will go yes, but I don't. Yes, I will go with that.
Okay, number 1. This was it for me. The guapo photo of Geronimo.
Oh, yeah.
He was looking back at us.
Oh, yeah. You felt that. Yeah. And the first installation when the lights went on at the Boulder Theater. Yeah, ding, 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 ding. Boom. High five. Loving it. Okay. Number 2, this is about snacks. This is about how do you keep it going for your research. And I'm going to go with this is about Yumi, dried mango and coffee.
Oh, yeah, that's true. He sees that in my studio all the time. It's definitely there.
So I know it's true.
Okay, no, it's true.
Anything, I don't know how to say that.
They're two, ube?
Ube and hopia?
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, that's also true.
Ding, ding, ding. Okay, high five. High five. Winning. Okay. Number 3, this is about the caffeinated beverage that you need that's going to make you buzz, which is not literal to the signs. And we're going to go with black coffee.
I like my milk.
And milk. Okay. And then tea and water.
That's correct.
Yeah, that is correct. Ding, ding, ding. You get 1 point for that. Okay. Number 4, the question was, who are the people who are annoyed and tired of hearing about the Filipino Rough Riders?
They're going to call in because I didn't name anybody.
Okay, yeah. Yumi said no one and no one.
I was going to say no one, but...
You actually came up with the name?
Those in your close proximity.
My son.
Yeah, your son.
That's there.
Javi.
The son.
Okay, and then is it Jose or Jesse? And Jose. A little annoyed.
I think Javi, yes. I think, yeah, because he knows all the names. Yeah. He can tell you all the names of the
Does he have he has a t-shirt? You need to get t-shirts.
Oh, we could get t-shirts. We could do merch.
Yeah, you could. I'm all about the merch. Okay. All right, that one I'm going to give you like a half a point. Okay. All right, the next question, this is about, places that if you could like have a conceptual art project anywhere in the world, where would you go? And Emmanuel said, it's on the move. It travels. Yeah. And then it went, okay, so it can stay in a place, one that can stay in a place. It won't stay in place. It won't stay in place. So it's got to be on the move. Yeah, yeah. So there's not place, not one place. No. Agree card?
Yes.
Ding, ding, ding. Okay. Yeah, everywhere. Yeah. Ding, ding, ding. Winning. Correct. Okay. And then...
I'm surprised at how many we've actually gotten.
No, I'm not surprised. I'm really... Okay, now, this is how I knew that Emmanuel doesn't do metaphor anthropomorphics, because I was like, if you could hear from a piece of ephemera, he's like, you mean hear like a cassette tape? And I was like, no, like, but I'm going to love this question. So if you could hear, what would be the piece of ephemera that would like speak to you?
Yes.
Non-literally, as you held it. And so...
I know the exact one, but I can't say it.
You can't say it because we can't share yet?
Yes, but I can do it generally.
Okay, so Emmanuel's one of the saddles.
Oh, for me.
For you.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. That, yes.
Is that true? Ding,
yes,
ding?
I'm like obsessed with saddles.
Obsessed. Okay. And then photos of some of the Filipino Rough Riders.
Yes.
But we can't say the exact one on TV.
No.
I'm not on TV. This is a podcast.
Can't say it.
Can't say it. Can we say it and then bleep it out?
No. How about this? Okay, it's this one. Beep. This one.
It's the one. Okay.
It'll just keep the audience hanging.
I know. It was like when we talked about Casa Bonita. You couldn't talk about Casa Bonita.
Right.
Here's the question that I want to see if you two can do collectively. On the podcast, we put a blessing or a speaking forward to the ancestors or a sending off into the... that starts with and. What would your and...
I don't know. I just said you when you went and visited one of them. Tabi tabi po.
Yeah.
What does that translate to?
I mean, that's a blessing. But it's not a blessing. That's some more like, let me please let it be okay that I'm walking here to our ancestor. Yes, let it be okay that we're here. We don't mean any harm.
We have been in conversation with them, and they've made themselves present.
Yes. So we have to say tabi tabi po all the time, I think.
It's our gratitude to them.
Yes.
That was Yumi and Emmanuel on the ampersand. For more on the Filipino Rough Riders and their installation, We Are Coming, see our show notes. The Ampersand is a production of the College of Arts and Sciences at the University of Colorado Boulder. It is written and produced by me, Erika Randall, and Tim Grassley. If there are people you'd like us to interview on the Ampersand, do please email us at asinfo@colorado.edu. Our theme music was composed and performed by Nelson Walker, and the episodes are recorded at Interplay Recording in Boulder, Colorado. I'm Erika Randall, and this is the Ampersand.